Okay, hello everybody. Welcome parents. Welcome everybody who's watching this video tonight or at a later time. My name is Megan. I'm here with my colleague Julie and a fantastic guest who you'll be hearing about momentarily. We are with the Bright Network and we are the family engagement team from the Bright Network. And we come to you every month with a topic of interest to parents that parents have mentioned they would love to hear more about and learn more about. And that kicks off the theme of a month for us. And then we host relevant support groups that are totally free. Any parent, K-12 parent, is welcome to these support groups. We'll tell you more about them at the very end. We have the second week of every month, we have a support group for middle and high school parents on this topic that we are talking about. So this month it's on digital parenting and parenting with screens and all these issues that come up all the time for us. The third week of the month is a support group for parents of elementary age kids. And then the last week of the month is a support group. It's a BIPOC affinity space. So all parents are welcome. It's free. It's online. We really hope you can join us. And this is our last of our educational events for this year. We will do it all over again next year, starting in September. And please reach out to us if you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns about what kinds of topics you'd like to learn more about. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Julie. Thank you, Julie, and welcome, parents.
Hello. Welcome, Diane Graber. You can find her at www.dianagraber.com. She is the author of Raising Humans in a Digital World, Helping Kids Build a Healthy Relationship with Technology, and founder of cyberwise.org and cybercivics.com. A longtime media producer with an MA in media psychology and social change. Graber is recognized expert on technology's impact on human behavior. In addition to serving as adjunct professor of media psychology, Graber teaches middle school cyber civics at Journey School in Southern California. She is the recipient of the 2017 Media Literacy Teacher Award from the National Association of Media Literacy Education. Welcome, Diana.
Thanks so much for having me. And thanks really for taking the time for what I think is a really important topic. I really hope you walk away from this with some tools you can use with your own families. So I will jump right in without further ado. As you heard, I'm the author of this book, Raising Humans in a Digital World. And Cyber Civics is our company that provides curriculum to schools to help kids learn how to be the masters of their own digital worlds. And CyberWise is our site for parents that's full of all sorts of free resources. All right, so one thing's for sure, childhood has changed. This is childhood not all that long ago in terms of how long humans have been on the planet. This is childhood today, right? So super different. And what that means is the way kids are being socialized has changed quite a bit. And I love this research. Let me just run you through it. So today's socialization is asynchronous. That means it's not happening at the same time. A text message that starts this week could go on into next week and maybe even the next week. Everything kids do now is permanent in public. The little girl here in the picture might think that's really funny today, but in 5 or 10 years, that picture might really embarrass her. 24/7 connection. This is what's making a lot of kids feel anxiety, like they have to be online all the time or they might miss something. Absence of physical cues. So much of what our kids are doing today that you can't see facial expressions or hear tone of voice. Quantifiable popularity is judged largely by number of likes, friends, followers. Super visual culture, everything they see, they have these just unattainable standards of beauty oftentimes. And what I really worry about is algorithms. Like algorithms are largely deciding what our kids see, what they like, what they get more of. So this is really different. It's different than it's ever been in terms of human history. What hasn't changed so much are these people, parents. And I love this quote from my friend Michelle Borba from her book. Parents haven't changed too much. They still want to raise kids who will grow up to be good and kind. So I think that we can probably all agree, all of us here, that's our goal today. So how do we do that in this world of screens? Well, it's something I thought really deeply about as I was writing my own book. And I think raising a digital kid today is a lot like building a house. It takes a long time. Your house is as good as the time you put into it. You want to start with a strong foundation, in this case, a strong foundation of social emotional skills, and build these pillars of knowledge upon that. So I'm going to start with this idea of a strong foundation. And the reason I'm going to do that is when you look around the world, this is what we see. I mean, kids from very, very young are in front of screens. Let me share some products with you. This is the holder to put your tablet on the back of a stroller or a car seat, because God forbid your child looks at nature, they should be looking at their screens. And this is one you have to get because changing diapers is so hard. You can wear your screen on your forehead to make changing diapers much easier. These are real, true products that are out there in the world right now. And hopefully I'll make a case for why they shouldn't be. All right, so we know that today screen time dominates kids' play. It's the #1 way they play, 18.6 hours per week. So I want you to remember that number, pretty high, 18.6. And we know from just eons of research what young children really need. They need, that's the next slide, but here's what their research that we're getting today on what the impact of these screens are on very young kids. And if you think about it, the iPad, for example, it's only been around 11 years, believe it or not. And that's not that long, but we do have research now telling us what the impact of these devices are on the young brain. So these are just some highlights here. 1-year-olds exposed to more than 4 hours of screen time a day experience developmental delays in communication and problem solving at ages 2 and 4. Increased use of screen time during infancy is associated with poor executive functioning when the child is 9. Mobile media use associated with expressive language delay in 18-month-old children. So that's the kind of stuff we're seeing. You know, it gets in the way of these really important developmental milestones. And what we do have is years and years and years of research on what young kids really need. We know that to build that strong foundation, they need face-to-face interaction. They need hands-on exploration. They need to interact with nature. They thrive when they're read to, talked to, or played with. So this is what our kids need. Any way you cut it, a screen is going to get in the way of that. So I don't want to dwell on the negative, because we're here tonight to talk about how do we prepare kids for this world that's inevitably filled with screens. And we can do this. Some of the research is actually positive. For example, some newer technologies like Skyping, FaceTime, even what we're doing now, Zooming, shows some benefits even for really young kids, because they see faces. They see facial expressions. They're sitting on mom's lap who can explain what's going on. So this is even what the APA recommends. This is their recommendations for screen time for children. They say from 0 to 18 months, no screens at all, except for screenshots, what I just mentioned. They say that's good for kids. 18 to 24 months, they say if you choose to introduce screens, choose quality programs, co-view, or do it together. 2 to 5, limit to 1 hour a day, high quality content, and do it together. So think about that for a second. So 1 hour a day, that's 6 hours a week. Do you remember what the time was? In actuality, that kids are spending with screens, it was a lot more. So big disparity between what the doctors say and what's really happening. One of the things I'll do tomorrow is I'll send a PDF that has links to a lot of the resources I mentioned tonight. One of them is this. This is our digital on-ramps, where we recommend technology that's developmentally appropriate at every age and stage. For example, 0 to 2, perhaps those screen times. 3 to 6, co-view educational content together with parent explaining. 7 to 9, play those child-friendly games together, find and use creative apps together. Ramp it up, ages 10 to 12, do school research together. But really the idea here is to, introduce technology slowly, but do it with them. So you're their guide, helping them as they get older, and maybe giving them more freedom as they get towards that preteen age. And the reason for that is that when your kid joins TikTok or Snapchat when they're 13 years old and something terrible happens, they're not going to be afraid to come to you, because you've been their guide every step of the way. And that time that you put in now, that's building your house, that time will pay off someday. All right, so I'm going to move to middle childhood, because this is such an important age. Pre-pandemic, these kids were the least likely to have devices in school. And brain development and education research suggests that screens should be used very judiciously at this age. But what happened was, with COVID, they needed screens for schoolwork, and the screens have stayed largely part of their lives. And they perhaps aren't quite ready for it. And here's why. So kids this age, they, in their brains, they engaged in concrete thinking, literal thinking. Everything is very black and white. While they're beginning to become aware that other people have their own unique perspectives, they can't quite guess how others are feeling or what they're experiencing. They're not yet abstract or ethical thinkers. Now, why is this important when it comes to technology? Well, everything you do in digital life, really the important things, requires this ethical thinking. Do I upload something that's going to hurt someone's feelings? Do I like something that's inappropriate? What if I see cyberbullying? What do I do? How about if someone asks me for a nude picture? Or what if I read fake news? Do I share it with somebody? And what if I'm approached by a predator? And how about clickbait? All of these things. It requires that higher order thinking. And honestly, kids just really aren't ready to do that until they reach the kind of 12, 13 age range. And sadly, we see headlines like this. This is so heartbreaking. This girl on the left, died after doing a TikTok challenge, 9 years old. Another child, 5th grader, died by suicide. I mean, these are kids that are technically too young to even be using social media. So I just think we could avoid a lot of our problems by being mindful of waiting before kids get access to all this stuff. All right, so what do kids need to know? So I think one of the most key things to teach our kids is this whole idea of their digital reputations. Everything they post online stays online forever. Everything they post can be searched for and viewed by vast invisible audiences. Others can share what they post. There's no oops key on the internet. This is a big deal for kids. And think about it again, where they are when they're in elementary school. It's really hard for these kids to consider the long-term impact of anything, really, let alone their digital reputation. So telling them that this is going to hurt them in the future, that makes zero sense to them. And also kids this age, I hear this a lot from the students I've taught in 6th grade, their reputations are created for them. 92% of 2-year-old children have an online profile with photos and info being posted within weeks of their birth. Parents post an average of 1,500 images of children before their 5th birthday. 28% of parents say they never thought to ask their child if they minded. This is called sharenting, or in extreme cases, oversharenting. And again, I hear this so much from kids that I've taught in 6th grade, and they're like, I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe my grandma put this picture of me online. And when you think about where kids are when they reach that age, their image is so precious to them. They don't want to look silly or ridiculous in front of their friends. And it's embarrassing oftentimes, the things other people post about them. So I think we really need to be mindful of that. All right, so we know the digital reputation is so important because we see headlines like this all the time of kids who have lost opportunities at colleges, or to get a job, or an athletic scholarship, or anything, internship, because of silly things they posted online, something done in a moment of adolescent stupidity that they can't take back. So this really matters. We know that colleges more and more are looking at social media when they're reviewing candidates for their college. 75% of colleges either monitor social media as part of their admission decision or will review social media brought to their attention. So this is a big deal for kids. We have to really teach them about this. And how do we do this? Well, I can tell you it does not work from my own experience. Lecturing kids about their online world, really ineffective. They know, especially I didn't grow up with this stuff, so what could I possibly teach them? One-time assemblies, a lot of schools will call us and say, hey, talk to our kids for an hour. And I'm like, an hour? That's not, there's a lot for them to know. They can't learn this stuff in an hour. And finally, fear doesn't work. Kids are super excited to be online. Their friends are there. It's where games are. It's where they have fun. So you really have to approach it from a different angle. So what I'm going to show you now is one of the videos from our in-school curriculum. It's how we introduce this topic of digital reputation. So I'll show you a bit of the video, and then I'm probably not going to play the whole thing because of our time, but I will send you the link afterwards. And I'm going to show you the activity that we have kids do in the classroom. Ah, and why the audio? Is your audio working? Oh, I wonder why. So weird. Well, it's a really cute video, I promise you, and I will send you the link. But it's basically teaching the kids that their digital reputation is oftentimes how people will view them before they actually meet them in person. So I don't know what's with the audio with this. So the activity that goes along with that video is that we have the kids play a little game in the classroom. They have to pretend that they're a college admissions officer, and their job is to decide which of 2 potential candidates they would award a full athletic scholarship to. And they do this based on each candidate's digital reputation. So here's our 2 candidates. They look awesome. They've each written a letter. David tells us what a great student he is, his high GPA, he's on the soccer team. And then the students look at his digital reputation, and they discover that our friend David has TP'd a friend's house and put it on Instagram. A newspaper article says he allegedly hacked into a school computer. Twitter, which is now X, he put a terrible post on there calling a team he played against hashtag losers. So that wasn't very nice. And then same thing, we look at the girl and she says she's an English major and she does all these wonderful things. She's on the Honor Society. And we look at the website for her school and her name does not appear on the Honor Society. We look at her Pinterest account and find that she's a terrible speller, even though she wants to be an English major. And finally, we find that she defaced the school bathroom doing a TikTok challenge. So while none of these, posts are really horrible in terms of what kids post, this is a great activity because it puts our students in the driver's seat and lets them judge someone else's digital reputation based on how an adult would do it. And so for this activity, they have to decide, who would you award the scholarship to? Based on their digital reputation, consider their honesty, maturity, and moral character. So usually the kids go, neither of them get it. So it's a really fun way for them to look at how important a reputation can be someday in the future. So there's things you can do together with your kids at home that would accomplish the same thing. Together with your kids, you could Google yourself and see what comes up. Talk about, is what you see positive, negative? Could you improve your digital reputation? And then Google friends and relatives. I will warn you to do this ahead of time first, because you never know what might come up. But it's a good way to talk about, what does each person's digital reputation say about them? Is it positive, negative? Does it match the same person you know in real life? I mean, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's way better. Sometimes there's things that would surprise you. And then you might consider setting up a Google alert for yourself and your children. That way you know if things ever come up that might be a surprise. And finally, there's so many talking points here. What they post online can contribute to their own reputations and the reputations of others via tagging. What others post about them can contribute to their own digital reputations. And the bottom line is, for our kids today, this is so tough, but they should choose their online friends and followers wisely. And that's a big thing here because, while we can control what we post about us, like my example of grandma posting the embarrassing photos, we can't control what other people post about us. So lots of important lessons here. It's a really important topic for kids. All right, another important topic is teaching kids how to manage their own screen time. We know that screen time really ramped up during the pandemic. It was up 17%, quite a bit for teens and also for preteens, 5 hours and 33 minutes a day. It's high and it's stayed high since the pandemic. Here's another way to look at it. Nearly all teens in 2022 have access to a smartphone, up from 73% in 2014. So if you look here, 95% of teens have smartphones today. And also nearly half of teens say they use the internet almost constantly, which I always think that's so hilarious. Like, how do you use the internet almost constantly? Like, that would mean you do nothing else, right? So if you look to the chart on the right, 46% of teens say they use the internet almost constantly. So that's a lot of time, right? Still, we did get a lot of good lessons during COVID. We learned that kids needed their screens for schoolwork, to maintain connections with family and friends. Research shows social media and video games provided temporary relief from real life and offered important opportunities for social engagement. So thank goodness for our screens for many reasons. And we learned especially what they were during COVID. But where are we now? So I think, this is a really unique opportunity for all of us to reframe our attitude towards this whole idea of screen time. And instead of measuring it by how much, really ask for what purpose. In other words, I think it's really important to find out what kids are actually doing online, because sometimes, I promise you, they will really surprise you. And it's funny because we were talking about boundaries before we started this Zoom, and I'm going to talk about them now. Kids need boundaries. They need agreements. I tell you, this is so key, especially those kids, elementary school. Like, these are our black and white thinkers. They need to know what their boundaries are surrounding devices. And I just am shocked sometimes at how few kids have any kind of agreement before they get a device. So on our CyberWise website, we have a tech agreement. It's 4 pages. Don't be daunted by that, because there are really talking points on things you can talk to your child about before you hand them a connected device. It's going to connect them to the world and all its people. You want to know who owns the device, what happens if it's broken, where does it go to bed at night, who charges it, what social media accounts can you download, how do you act when you're on it. So all of that stuff should be negotiated up front. You should sign it, you should revisit it. There should be a different agreement for every child depending on their age and stage. This is a huge thing. They need this help. Otherwise, who wouldn't use their cell phone 24/7 and talk to everybody and everything if they had the opportunity? It's just what a child would do. So this could really help. The other thing, I think parents should really ask themselves some really deep questions before handing a child a connected device. Can your child maintain their online reputation or safe relationships or know how to unplug or protect their privacy? All of these questions are so important. These two things I'll send you links to so you can look at these deeper later, but I just think these are essential items to think about before giving your child any kind of connected device. And then I'm just really bullish on teaching kids this in school. This is an example from our cyber civics curriculum. These are all the lessons we teach kids in the classroom about everything from, cyberbullying to deep fakes to clickbait. But we really cover time quite a, whoops, let me go back. We cover time quite a bit throughout these lessons. We have kids look at it like, how precious is your time? How are you spending your time? What about persuasive technology? Or is the cell phone cheating you of your time? We want them to think about this in terms of, making these choices ahead of time so they don't feel like adults are making these choices for them. So I'm hoping the audio on this one plays. Let's see. I don't know what is up with my audio. I apologize for this, but I'm going to tell you what's in here. It's a video basically asking kids to think about how precious their time is and how much time they will spend in their life staring at a screen and how much time they could be doing other things. So it's really cute. And again, I will send you a link to this so that you can watch it with your family after this presentation is over. All right. So the other thing about screen time, kids really look to their parents to discover how to be an adult. And we know that parents spend 9 hours a day with screens. That's even more time than teens spend with their screens. Yet 78% of parents think they're good media use role models. So, remember, it really starts with us. They're looking to us to figure out how to be an adult and how to spend their time. All right, so here's some ideas regarding screen time. Set aside those no device times. Mealtime is a great example of there should be no devices at mealtime. Put devices to bed at night in the same place. I hear from so many students that it's hard for them to, sleep because they know it's 10 o'clock and their friends are playing a video game and their phone's right there in their bedroom. So that's really distracting and hard for a child. Stress people before devices. It's so important to give your attention to the real people in front of you instead of the people on your phone. Use tech together, and that's something we talked about earlier. Do it together, make it fun, find out what your kids are seeing on their devices. And the bottom line, stress connection, creativity over to pure consumption. So just some ideas regarding screen time. All right, here's a really important one, relationships. And I put this here because I hear so much after I talk about screen time, parents say, my kids are addicted to their screens. And we have to remember it's not their screens they're addicted to each other. And this is really true when kids reach that preteen, teenage years. That's their job developmentally, to detach from their family of origin, to reach out to their peers, to figure out who they are and what they like. That work is happening on their screens. So we have to remember that this is what they're attracted to more than anything. So there was a really good study done by Common Sense Media, and they found that social media use is increasing for 12-year-olds. This is an age group that technically is not allowed to have access to the main social media platforms. 38% of their respondents surveyed in this age group say they use some sort of social media, up from 31% in 2019. So we know we have a ton of really young kids using social media way before their time. And I'm going to be I just don't know why my audio is not playing. So bummed about this. Ugh. I have no idea. I gave this exact same presentation earlier this morning and it all played. So I'm sorry. It's something with Zoom, I think. Is my audio okay? Yeah, my audio is good. So, well, I will tell you what's in this video. I'm going to send you the link to this. And if you just watch one of my videos that I send you, please watch this one. But our U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy, gave a really, really great little talk about he can't believe why there's so many young kids on social media and how they're just not developmentally ready. And we don't have any safeguards in place for what they're seeing or the content they're being exposed to. And that this, in his view, is one of the major crises that we're really dealing with today. So I really urge you to watch it. It's really a good little speech, very short. All right, so we know that the minimum age of use on all of these social networks is 13, everything from TikTok to Facebook to Snapchat. So really important. And here's what kids are doing online. So this is a look at the social media apps that they use. And by far and away, the things kids use most is YouTube. 95% of kids are on YouTube. That's a lot. That's almost all the kids. And if you look, it's quite far above the next three, which are TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. They love videos. This is so hot for them. In addition to this, they're also playing games like Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox with their friends. For many boys, that's their social media. So I'm going to take a closer look here at YouTube because I think it's important. So here's another way to look at it. Here's our almost constantly word again. This is what they're actually doing almost constantly. 1 in 5 kids visit or use YouTube almost constantly. They love videos. So YouTube is huge. All right. If you're not familiar with YouTube, I don't know where you've been living, but here you go. This site is entirely user generated. So that means users makes all the videos on there. What's interesting about YouTube, it also relies on the same users to flag videos that violate their terms of service. Things like hate speech, sexual content, etc. So think about that for a minute. Like most users are kids, right? Younger, they're not going to spend the time to flag inappropriate stuff. So a lot of inappropriate stuff gets out there. A lot of it is not age appropriate for kids. There is a way to set up a supervised account for younger children, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. All right, so people ask me, how could this possibly be social media? Well, it is because users are communicating all the time through likes, comments, replies. There's a lot of communication that happens within YouTube. The other thing that's really big on YouTube, you probably know, are influencers, YouTubers. So there was a really interesting study done in the UK about what kids wanted to be when they grew up. And the second and third most popular professions that they wished to pursue were social media influencer and YouTuber. So they see these people, they think they're making a ton of money. It looks like a lot of fun. This is what a lot of kids aspire to. It's interesting though, I do this a lot of times with my classes. I'll ask them to tell me what influencers they like, and I write down the names and I go home and Google them. And it often surprises me. Some of these people are really interesting and they're doing really good things and they're great role models. So, you know, don't have the impression that they're all terrible role models, because I discovered that was not the case at all, which is a good example of why it's always important to ask kids what they're doing online. All right, so the other thing about YouTube, kids are turning to YouTube more than Google to search for things they're interested in. It's become their search engine, and that's because they'd rather watch a video than read a bunch of boring text. So I want to show you a lot of things on YouTube are recommended to us by algorithms, as you know. So I ran a little study myself. I pretended I was a kid doing a research paper on the moon landing. So the first video I got was a legitimate video on the moon landing. And then YouTube started giving me recommendations on other videos I should watch. So here was my recommendation list on the left. Did Stanley Kubrick fake the land landings? I don't believe the moon landing happened. The moon landing conspiracy. Joe Rogan on the moon landing conspiracy. So can you imagine if I were a kid doing a paper, I would think it was a conspiracy that we landed on the moon. I mean, this is the way that this information gets to kids. So do be aware of that. All right, so we know that during COVID, over 1/4 of the most viewed YouTube videos on COVID-19 contained misleading information, reaching millions of viewers worldwide. And now with AI coming, you know, this situation has not gotten any better. All right, so there is something called YouTube Kids. It's really easy to open an account using a Google account. You can have an individual profile for every child based on their age. You can improve what they watch. There's a younger mode for 5 to 8-year-old kids that explores their interests like songs, cartoons, and crafts. There's an older mode for kids 9 and up. They can search and explore additional content such as popular music and gaming videos. So pretty good. If you have older kids and you are concerned about how they're using YouTube, talk to them. Just talk, ask what they're watching, be curious. If you're not getting answers that you want to hear, if your child has a YouTube account, which only requires their Gmail address, their YouTube page will display recently watched videos, recommended videos based on their watch history, and suggestions for channels similar to those they've watched. If your child happens to delete their watch history, if they want to really hide things from you, their recommendations will still be related to things they watch. So there are ways to find out what kind of videos your kids are watching. All right, I'm going to cover TikTok too, because this is of the next three hot social media. This is the one. And this one's really interesting. Like the others, it's user generated videos. You have to be 13 to open an account. They don't verify age. So the users on TikTok are really, really young. 37% are between 10 and 19. And during COVID, TikTok experienced a 180% growth. So it's huge. If you're not familiar with TikTok today, there's all kinds of videos. Some are great. There's crafting videos. There's stuff about school. There's just funny pet videos, everything. It has an insane algorithm. The algorithm is so smart. It knows what you like before you know you like it. I tell you, it feeds kids exactly what they like. And that's one of the things that makes it so appealing. It still uses a lot of popular music. You'll find a lot of swearing, foul language on this app, a lot of sexually suggestive material. So one of the things that's big on TikTok are these challenges. And that's when somebody does something crazy and they make a little recording of it. And then they encourage other people to do the equally crazy thing. And they put the video on there too. So especially during COVID, I guess bored kids, there were some very dangerous TikTok challenges. Tide Pod challenge, the school bathroom challenge. That's where someone defaced the school bathroom and recorded it. The Benadryl challenge, the coronavirus challenge. One of the really dangerous ones has been the blackout challenge, where kids will try to choke themselves until they're blackout and then stop at the last moment. There's been several deaths in relation to that challenge. Sadly, this is an example of one, a 12-year-old, again, someone who was too young to be on the app took that challenge and ended up dying. So it could be quite dangerous. The other thing, I mentioned sexualized content. So this is a great article, and I will send a link to this because I thought it was really good. Julie Jargon of the Wall Street Journal wrote it, but talks about how there's a lot of sexualized images and videos on TikTok. And that's because it goes back to these kids wanting to be influencers or TikTokers. And one thing that TikTok does is it rewards the more sexualized content, gets more followers, more likes. It's pushed up by the algorithms. And so that's why, it's kind of known that the more sexualized your content, the more eyeballs you will get on it. So something to be aware of. All right. So like I talked about, YouTube being the new search engine, this is crazy, but this is happening on TikTok as well. When kids don't know about something, they're going to TikTok to learn more. And I think this is hilarious because when you think about the users are so young, like when somebody is so young, you don't really think they're an expert on anything. And then other kids are going to these videos to get expert opinions. So we know there's a lot of misinformation happening on YouTube. Here's a great study that was done by NewsGuard. They found that TikTokers were consistently fed false and misleading claims. Almost 20% of the videos presented as search results contain misinformation. So not a great place to go to work while you're working on your school paper. All right. The other thing, there's a lot of current events on all of these apps. We've got a lot of things happening in the world right now. And, a lot of kids are getting their news from their social media apps. And I think of this specifically when there are those younger children using the apps that might not have a parent there to explain what they're seeing or to give them comfort or just to give them a break from the stuff. And we hear about all the stress and anxiety that kids are experiencing. And I think a lot of it is due to the content that they're being exposed to, what they claim is almost constantly. So do be aware of that. And you've probably heard about the TikTok ban, which I think it's funny. It's not really a ban at all. It's just they want someone else in the US to buy it. And right now, TikTok is fighting against that. So I don't know that it's going to be going anywhere soon. The one thing I will say about TikTok, it has great safety features because they've been under the microscope so much. They've really, I think of all the social media apps, they have the best safety features for kids. As an example, this is unusual for social media apps. Accounts for users 13 to 15 default to private. That means others can search for you, but they must request and be approved as a friend in order to contact you or see your content. So that's a big deal. They also have family pairing. This is a way that a parent can set those safety controls. And what you do is a parent has to have TikTok on their phone and the child has to have it on their own phone. They link their accounts, and that allows the parent to do all these things that you see on the screen. Manage their screen time, put it in restricted mode, search, discoverability, all of that stuff can be managed by the parent. And it's really, really easy to use. If you go into TikTok and you can see on the screen to the left, you just choose family pairing and it will walk you through all these screens and tell you how to set that up with your child. So I think it's a great way. The first time your child signs up for TikTok, you sign up for it too. Pair your phones and talk about what kind of settings you want, what kind of boundaries you both want for them when they're using this app. All right, so I can't leave this whole topic of relationships without giving a little attention to games, because games are super social too. You'll see here for boys, it's like almost, one of their most popular social media apps. Here, 6th to 8th grade boys, it's right behind YouTube. 9th to 12th grade boys, it's right behind YouTube and Snapchat. So a lot of socialization is happening on gaming. I also often get asked, like, what's the most popular game? And I think the answer to that is it's the ones their friends play, because boys will come home especially and play games with their friends, and it's where they socialize. It's where they have their social media happening. So are games good or bad? And again, this should be its own 1-hour talk. So I'm just going to give you the highlights here. It really depends on the kid. There is a study that found video games have positive effects, including better performance on cognitive skills, involving impulse control and working memory compared to children who have never played video games. Games like Minecraft and Roblox show benefits. Players learn problem solving, strategizing, flexibility, social skills. So there are some really positive things. On the other hand, there's negative things. Playing video games can contribute to poor sleep, impact attention, academic performance. It can cause aggressive behaviors. And here's the one that I think that parents should be aware of. There's an interesting study that found over 300 swear words are used per hour in an average video game, which roughly translates to 1 expletive every 10 seconds. Isn't that crazy? It's a lot. So that's the thing. Language in video games, pretty coarse. So if you do have a young child, maybe they're not quite ready for the headphones where you can't hear what's going on. You should probably have that audio so everyone in the family can hear it. You can talk about what is appropriate language. All right. And then finally, what else are they doing? They're texting, they're chatting, they're DMing. Again, they're connecting with their peers. Probably the biggest problem I would say that is most kids experience at one time or another is what we call digital drama. And that's just the plain old stuff that kids have done forever. Exclusion, mean comments, rumors. And sadly, the stuff is now playing out on their phones, which just makes it that more exasperated. So this is where a lot of the things are happening. All right, so the final little topic I'm going to address tonight, and I feel like bad when I put this last because it is super important. It's their privacy and personal information. Those apps that we just talked about, all of that stuff is collecting our kids' information. So it feeds their algorithms that tell them what to give the kids. So all of that data is being collected from really, really young kids. This is another way to look at it. Your phone, when you say you want to buy something, we all experience that, right? I mean, our phones are pretty smart. So there is a law. It's called COPPA. It's the Child Online Privacy Protection Act. It protects the privacy and personal information of children under 13. What that means is sites and apps are supposed to get parental consent in order to collect their personal information. This law is great, that it only works if a child is honest about their age and waits till they're 13 to sign up for something. Sadly, that's not what's happening. 3/4 of children between 10 and 12 open their accounts by simply lying about their age. They're not protected by that important law. The other thing youth really need to know when it comes to privacy is that, when they open an account, this is an account on Instagram, for example, even if they make their account private, their picture and their bio will be public by default. So if you remember, what I thought was pretty cool is TikTok makes everything private by default. Instagram does not do that. It makes everything public by default. So what that means is young kids, they're not going to have usually a very robust digital reputation yet. But if they open an Instagram account, they put like a ridiculous photo or an inappropriate bio and someone Googles them, this will pop up as part of their digital reputation. So it's a very simple first lesson that if your child's going to open an account on anything, put something up that's not going to embarrass you, put an appropriate photo, put an appropriate bio, because this stuff people can see. This is something we cover in Cyber Civics. We have a big unit on privacy and personal information. We actually have kids read the privacy policies of the apps they use, like TikTok. And it's so funny when they do this because they discover things that freak them out. They're like, I can't believe this. And it's usually buried, deep, deep, deep within the terms of use. But here's an example. Some students of mine discovered that TikTok shares their data with third-party service providers. They discovered what that means, that even when the app isn't being used, it's collecting information off your phone. That means if you copy and paste sensitive information, such as a password or private conversation on your phone, TikTok is noting and storing that information. So that's why the algorithm is so powerful. It's collecting a lot of data from us. And this is an important lesson for kids, you know, they're the ones signing up for these apps. They should know what important personal information they're giving away. So I love teaching these lessons because it empowers them to make these smart choices for themselves. And I bet this isn't going to give you audio either, and I will share the link, but yeah, we had a visit from the Today Show when right after I taught that lesson on privacy, and the group of kids that I had sitting at the table had just read the terms of use and were not happy about what they learned at this time. It was Snapchat, and they all deleted Snapchat off their phones. And they tell him about that experience, which I thought was awesome. All right, so I want to leave you with some things you can do that are tangible, and it's so super simple. I think if we do these few little things, we'll see such an improvement in our digital kids' lives. Number one, for our youngest children, 0 to 5, be mindful of tech use. This is a really important time for face-to-face human interaction. Remember that what kids need most is that human face-to-face, hands-on play, engagement with nature, all of that stuff. It builds those social emotional competencies that they will need so much when they do go online. Number two, as kids get older, remember to co-view, to be selective their tech use. Remember they need boundaries. So I'm going to give you some tools tomorrow that will allow you to give them those boundaries. Encourage respect of minimum age of use. And finally, for teens, this is a time to empower them to critically assess tech use and set boundaries for themselves. And be sure your schools are teaching them how to do this through digital literacy, media literacy, all those important topics. So we also have a ton of resources for you. This is our website, Cyber Civics, about our curriculum taught all over the US. So if your child's school isn't teaching digital literacy, please tell them about us. We have a brand new curriculum for 4th and 5th grade. This is our website for parents, and I hope you visit it. It's got so much information on here. If you look at the top, you'll see something called Learning Hubs. Under Learning Hubs, we literally have a hub from everything from TikTok to Snapchat to Facebook to all the apps I didn't have time to talk about tonight. But you'll find so much valuable information on there. We also have a newsletter we send every couple of weeks that has like the breaking news of what's happening in technology and kids. So please feel free to check it out. It's great for parents. And then there's my book. It's available on Amazon, but I think really the most important part of my book is I offer this free discussion guide. You can download it at that link that you see here on our website. And what I tried to do is write questions per chapter so that parents could talk about them together. Because really my hope was that if you have a bunch of kids that are friends, maybe their parents could get together, read a chapter, talk about the topics. And what that does, it really helps you help your kids because you're on the same page, you're understanding what they're going through, you can come to common agreements. And that means there won't be this outlier kid, like the only one that maybe has a cell phone or the only one that's not playing Minecraft. You can talk about that ahead of time. So hopefully the discussion guide will help you with that. We also have a podcast and webinar that's also, you'll find that on the CyberWise website. And I'm pretty easy to find. So there's my personal information. You feel free to reach out to us, check out our websites. I will follow up tomorrow with a PDF with links to all of the resources I mentioned tonight, so you don't have to go looking around the internet for it. And I apologize, I don't know why my audio didn't work. That's so bizarre.
It happens.
Frustrating, but I'll send links. All those videos are on YouTube, so I'm going to make sure that you guys have access to all that. So, but the good news is that will leave us more time for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Diana. That is, we were so lucky to have your presentation last year, and this one feels like so related, but like a lot of new content and a lot of new information. So thank you so very much. And yeah, we do have a few questions, and I don't know, Julie, if you want to start, you want me to start?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, so I cross this bridge with parents a lot. What do you do if your kid won't stop, either get off the digital social media or won't stop video gaming? What do you do?
I mean, that's why I always suggest having that agreement in place first, have an agreement. And if your agreement is, okay, 1 hour homework equals 1 hour of video gaming, and they're like, yay, start the clock, and the hour's up, and you're like, hey, we got an agreement here, and you're breaking the agreement. So guess what? Here's the consequences that we agreed on. I mean, you got to do this stuff up front because these devices are too powerful. Like they're designed to capture and hold on to our attention. There is no kid in the world that has the wherewithal to be able to fight against the greatest technologists in the world. That's their battle. And so we have to arm them with things. And the thing that we arm them with is an agreement in place ahead of time. So I really think that's the way to go.
Thank you for that. I have a question, Diana. You may not know the answer to this one because it's, you may not know it, but you talked about, it's so scary to hear about when you were pointing out kind of the tracking and the algorithms and things like that. Do you know how phones listen in that way, like listen to things? And if you turn off your phone, does that prevent that, like for kids and for ourselves? Like it does seem that if you're having a conversation about something, then all of a sudden you're getting that ad. But
I mean, I wish I knew, honestly. Like, I think you do have to turn it off completely.
Okay.
Because I have tried turning off all kinds of mechanisms on my phone, and it still seems to, I mean, it's weird. Like I'll have a conversation with my husband about buying a cushion, and he'll get like an ad.
It's so weird. Yeah. That is so okay.
Yeah. And they're just, things are getting, it's more and more invasive, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get more invasive. So I think turning off the phone and walking away and, unplugging is really the only solution.
Yeah. Thanks.
There's things, I mean, obviously there's things you can do in all the apps you use to make it not collect so much information. Like, for example, even when you use Google to go in dark mode and not have it not track you, turn off cookies. These are things we teach the kids in cyber civics, to go through their privacy and what to mark so that they're not being tracked as much as
that's great.
You want them to be. But even when you do that, it's not 100%.
Yeah, that's great.
What can, I'm a teacher, so there's a lot of talk around AI. What do parents need to know about AI? Because as a teacher, I'm terrified.
Yeah, I mean, I think knowledge is power, and I think knowing how AI works is just the start. And we have a lot of lessons in the curriculum now that teach kids what AI is, and I'm finding the teachers like, thank you, I had no idea what it works and what it does. So I think, and it's really simple how it works. It's gathering information that we give it. You know what I mean? So that's information is what feeds AI to allow it to, and it doesn't think, it just makes predictions based on what it curates off the internet. So I think teaching kids about that and empowering them to say, look, there's humans creating this, and we have to think about how we want to use it. And here's some scenarios when you get older. What if you had this situation? Would you want to do this? And it's coming so fast, and it's almost like too fast for us adults to catch up, but it's not too fast for the kids. They're pretty smart. So I think just to arm them with lessons on what it is and what they're going to be looking at in the future is really important.
That's helpful. That's helpful. It's like a whole new world that keeps regenerating, right? It's like so there's questions here we have about, and I feel like I've heard different things about this, but would you say there is a connection between like violent video games and future violence, or is there not that connection? People talk about that leads to violence. Is that
it like I said with video games, it depends on the kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't it can't make that direct correlation with every child, because it's not like every child's going to react to it like that.
Yeah.
And so like some kids have that tendency first, and then it exasperates it, or how much time they spend with it. It's so all over the map, honestly. The one thing about video gaming that's different from internet use as a whole is, for internet use, it has not been found to be a true addiction. Like, that it's not in the medical journals as a true addiction, even though people say that all the time.
Yeah.
Video gaming is. So years ago, they recognized video gaming as a true addiction that can have serious problems. And so you will find it in the medical journal listed that way. So there could be serious implications. And I always tell parents, like, if there's warning signs, like if your child their grades are suffering, they're really isolated from their friends, they're spending way too much time and other things are falling to the side, then there is a problem and they should address that problem. They
Yeah.
need to get help.
Yeah, thank you.
What about online gambling with kids? Is that something that there's information on?
Yeah, I don't hear, I saw that in your list of questions and I don't hear a lot about that at all. Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, I think I hear every problem from schools everywhere and with kids
Yeah.
anyway. I
mhm.
don't hear about online gaming at all. It has not come to risen to the surface of the many things that parents were worrying about or seeing. So with
Yeah.
adults, of course, yes, but not so much with kids.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, and another aspect, like something that I know is taught in school, is this idea of human trafficking. And, I think a lot of parents aren't really aware of how
Yeah.
kids have access,
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because I just participated in a town hall here in my community, and the first speaker was someone from the law enforcement, and that's what they deal with is the human trafficking. And I was really shocked, honestly, how much of it happens in my own region. I live in Orange
Yeah.
County, California. It's like middle
Yeah.
class. And where that happens, it's very related to sextortion. And what's happening with some kids, not a lot of kids, just some small number, but it's enough to worry about, is that they'll be playing like a game or they'll be on a mainstream social media site and someone will befriend them. And what we're finding is a lot of the kids are being befriended or maybe struggling or, kind of outcast or whatever, some problem. And they're more vulnerable youth. And so they're befriended by a stranger, and the stranger will often say, hey, let's move to offsite. Let's go to WhatsApp or let's go somewhere, more secure place to have a conversation. And then they'll get friendlier and friendlier. And in some cases, they'll ask them for like an intimate photo or something. And then they claim, I'm going to share this to everybody in your friend group unless you send me an Amazon gift card. And it's often they'll ask for gift cards because they're not in the country. They even send cards internationally. It's crazy. And it's like, I actually personally know people that this has happened to because they call us and tell us the stories. And then to hear how often it's happened within our community was even shocking to me. So I think the bottom line here is to really be aware of who our kids are conversing with when they're using even mainstream apps and games.
Yeah.
And then we tell kids all the time in the curriculum, do not go off site with a stranger. Like you just don't, if someone says to move the conversation somewhere, you tell a parent immediately.
Yeah. Thank you, Diana. And I can pass it over to you, Julie, to wrap up in a sec, but I just want to say that so many of the other questions we had, you really answered in your presentation around, where parents can go for more information. You have such a resource-rich thing that you're sharing with us, and just how to have the conversations and to be in conversation with your kid around it. And those are some of the big takeaways I'm having, and I just appreciate like the breadth of the different topics you've touched. And
Thank
I'll
you.
pass
It's
it on.
always so hard to put so much in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Honestly. And so I hope I don't overwhelm you with the links I will send tomorrow, because
Oh.
every parent's got different concerns and I want to give them resources and places to go for those concerns. So hopefully that will help.
Oh yeah, that's great. You've hit so many topics.
Yeah. I'm excited to share this information with the parents that I work with. I just want to say I'm a little shell-shocked because when you shared the third-party app with the TikTok and how it's collecting information, and I'm thinking, I copied I copied a password and I posted it here. So I'm a little freaked out myself right now. And I think that's the bigger point, is not only are our children at risk, so are us as adults, right? Like, you hear about scammers with adults happening or older people. So, parent modeling is really important. It's something that we all need to practice. And I really appreciate that you have a website, Cyberwise, and you give really good guidelines, about by age, about how things should look. And I really want to emphasize the what you mentioned was the download of the discussion guide, because I think, everything we do in Bright is really about community and relationships. And you need to have a relationship and discuss these things in an ongoing way with your family. And it's not just, I'm an adult and I said this and you should do it because I said so, but let's talk about this. What does this look like? And what does this mean? So I really appreciate all the information you shared with us because I
So
learned a lot.
welcome. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're happy to pass it on.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you so much, Diana.
You guys are
Yeah.
welcome. Always a
So
pleasure.
just as a reminder, we do have some parent support groups still coming up. On the 14th, we have an elementary-based parent support group with this topic of digital parenting. We will have on the 21st of May our middle high school groups, and then on the 28th our BIPOC groups. And then for the year, that's kind of our last parent support groups of the year. And as Megan said, this is our last parent learning opportunity of the year as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having
Thank
me.
you,
Have a
Karen.
great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, and